Welcome back to Griffonomics, where we conduct financial investigations to define the risk before we look at the reward. Today, we're diving into America's AI Action Plan, or AAAP, a comprehensive strategic blueprint released back in July 2025.
And this document, it isn't just policy. I mean, we're looking at a detailed, decade-long strategic mobilization effort.
So for this deep dive, let's just frame the core thesis that really ties the policy to the potential financial outcome.
Okay, so here it is, and it's a big one. The AAAP aims for, and this is a direct quote, unquestioned and unchallenged global technological dominance.
Okay, that's a bold mission statement.
It is, and it plans to get there through deregulation and accelerated innovation. But, and this is the critical part, success hinges entirely on the massive energy and scientific mobilization required by something called the Genesis mission.
The Genesis mission.
Think of it as a Manhattan Project equivalent, and it's being led by the Department of Energy, the DOE.
Okay, let's really unpack that scope. I mean, that immediately tells us we're looking far beyond the next quarter or the next fiscal year.
Oh, absolutely. This blueprint, which is officially titled Winning the Race, it's not a short-term catalyst. It's setting the stage for an industrial-scale, long-term modernization cycle.
Something unlike anything we've seen in decades, really.
Exactly. The administration is essentially presenting this as a fundamental restructuring of the American economic and, scientific landscape.
So the stakes are?
What?
Securing America's strategic leadership.
Strategic leadership, future economic vitality, all of it, especially in a world that is, let's be honest, increasingly dominated by this technological competition.
The framing is just extraordinary. I remember reading the line, an industrial revolution, an information revolution, and a renaissance all at once.
It signals a complete societal and economic overhaul, all driven from the very top by AI.
So let's start with that core vision, President Trump's view of AI, because that really informs every single policy decision that follows. This is not just about faster computers.
No, it's about the global balance of power. The view from the top is, well, it's absolutely unambiguous. AI is not just some technological advantage.
It's seen as an imperative.
The preeminent national security imperative of our era. It's the newest frontier of scientific discovery.
And when the policy says it has the potential to reshape the global balance of power, what are they really getting at?
They're suggesting that whichever nation controls the foundational AI models, and crucially, the infrastructure to run them, that nation will define the future world order. It's that simple.
So the end goal, the strategic objective,
is to leverage that technological superiority to secure what they're calling a new golden age of human flourishing for the American people.
And to get there, to achieve that really sweeping goal, the administration structured the entire effort around three very clear pillars in the AAAP.
Yeah, and that structure is the operational roadmap. Pillar 1 is all about speed, getting government out of the way. They call it Accelerate AI Innovation.
Okay, Pillar 1, speed.
Pillar 7 addresses the physical world, the constraints, the fundamental requirements to do any of this at scale. So build American AI infrastructure.
And Pillar 3.
That deals with everything outside our borders, the competitive environment. Lead in international AI diplomacy and security. Every single action in this plan fits neatly into one of those three buckets.
Okay, and this is where the strategy really makes a sharp turn from the previous administration.
Yeah.
I mean, the very first action, signed within a month, was a complete reversal of existing policy.
Yes. That deregulatory move was the cornerstone. It was the foundation for everything else. On January 23, 2025, Executive Order 14179 was signed.
Removing barriers to American leadership in artificial intelligence.
Exactly. Its core purpose was radical deregulation, clearing the path for the AAAP to move at speed. And most importantly, EO 49179 explicitly revoked the Biden administration's Executive Order 14110.
That revocation is so central here. We have to understand why they saw the previous order, EO 14110, as such a fundamental barrier. What was the problem?
Well, the prevailing view in the administration was that EO 14110 imposed and I'm quoting again, a dangerous and onerous regulatory regime.
Onerous how?
It was happening at precisely the moment AI required maximum flexibility and speed. The argument was, multi-layered. First, all the bureaucracy, the pre-market regulation.
Like having to do extensive reporting and safety checks before a model could even be deployed.
Precisely. That would just directly stifle the frantic pace of innovation you need to win a global race like this one.
And the second layer of that argument.
They argued that this heavy regulatory environment It would unfairly benefit the established, deep-pocketed incumbents, the big tech companies.
The ones who can afford the compliance teams.
Of course. The ones already equipped to navigate these complex regulatory landscapes, so the heavy compliance costs, they effectively become a moat.
A moat that protects the big players and just crushes the nimbler startups.
Exactly. The core philosophy of the AAAP is that bureaucracy breeds stagnation. It benefits the status quo.
Yeah.
So deregulation isn't just some ideological preference.
It's framed as a tactical necessity.
A tactical necessity to unleash private sector innovation. They believe that competition and startups are the only reliable path to real breakthrough technology.
And that stance, that ideology of favoring speed, of challenging those previous regulatory frameworks, it's woven into the entire plan.
Deeply. And they also mandated specific principles about how AI must be developed, particularly concerning ideological content.
Right. There were two really significant ones.
Absolutely. First, the plan is built on what they call a worker-first AI agenda. The idea is that the AI deployment and the huge infrastructure build-out that comes with it has to translate directly into high-paying jobs for American workers.
So it's about leveraging human skill, not just replacing it.
Where possible, yes. And second, and this is a really big one, there's a very strong mandate for, let's call it philosophical integrity in the systems themselves.
So AI systems that the federal government buys or uses
must be explicitly free from ideological bias, and they must be designed to pursue objective truth rather than what the administration calls social engineering agendas.
So that focus on verifiable truth and neutrality, that's presented as a key ideological guardrail for the entire plan.
It is. So if Pillar Heart is about speed, then Pillar 2 has to be about, well, gravity. The physical constraints.
Let's move to Pillar 2 second then, because this feels like the critical constraint that the entire long-term investment thesis hinges on. The infrastructure, the energy mobilization.
Yeah.
Without power, the chips are just sand.
That is the perfect transition. Because what's so fascinating here is the administration's really clear-eyed recognition of the immediate structural problem holding America back.
And what is that problem?
The sources are very clear on this. AI is the first digital service in modern life that challenges America to build vastly greater energy generation.
Vastly greater than what we have now.
I mean, our existing electric grid, most of it was built in the 50s and 60s. It's basically stagnated since the 1970s.
So the path to AI dominance, to training these massive models for the Genesis mission, it all depends on reversing that decades-long trend of energy stagnation.
Completely. Sovereign compute. The ability to process your own data is fundamentally impossible without sovereign power.
Which brings us to this powerful, almost wartime mobilization cry. Build, baby, build. How does that actually translate into regulatory action to speed things up? Because permitting is notoriously slow.
It is. And that ethos mandates incredibly streamlined permitting for all the related infrastructure. We're talking hyperscale data centers, semiconductor fabs, and most critically, new energy generation.
The government is trying to just collapse the timeline.
Exactly. The plan specifically leverages and expands existing tools to speed up environmental reviews. For instance, they talk about significantly expanding the use of categorical exclusions under NEPA.
The National Environmental Policy Act.
Right.
Okay, for our listeners, explain why expanding those categorical exclusions under NEPA is so significant for an investor. What does that do?
Well, this isn't just about reducing paperwork. It fundamentally changes the time horizon for an investment. NEPA can require years of environmental assessment for a big infrastructure project.
A categorical exclusion lets you bypass that.
It allows an agency to bypass that lengthy review for certain types of projects that are seen as unlikely to have a major environmental impact.
So by expanding that definition?
It means certain energy projects, data center expansions, maybe even parts of new power plants could potentially skip years of regulatory assessment. They can go from planning straight to groundbreaking.
And they're also using something called the FAST-T41 process.
They're expanding the use of that, yes. FAST-T41 coordinates reviews across multiple federal agencies. The idea is to prevent one agency's slow approval from holding up an entire national priority project.
So you're collapsing a 5 to 7 year regulatory timeline into what, 2 or 3 years?
That's the goal. It's basically declaring war on bureaucratic inertia, all in the service of technological acceleration.
But the sheer demand for power from AI,
Yeah.
it's just unprecedented. It has to be consistent, high-load power.
Yeah.
How are they planning to meet that? They can't just build more gas plants.
No. And the energy strategy is actually highly sophisticated and forward-looking. It prioritizes the interconnection of reliable, dispatchable power
And
sources.
dispatchable means you can turn it on and off when you need it.
Exactly, you can control it. It brings stability that intermittent sources like solar or wind just can't provide for the massive, constant load of a high-performance computing center.
So the core strategy is to just embrace the tech frontier to achieve energy dominance. What specific technologies are they betting on?
They're heavily accelerating the development and deployment of new generation sources. Things like enhanced geothermal, which gives you consistent baseload power.
Right.
Also, advanced nuclear fission reactors like small modular reactors, or SMRs. And critically, they're placing massive research bets on nuclear fusion.
These reliable, dispatchable sources are seen as essential to stabilizing the grid for the AI economy.
They're fundamentally restructuring the entire power generation landscape to support it.
And this energy build-out, it's not just about kilowatts. It ties directly back to national security. It's about creating a defensive perimeter.
It absolutely does. A parallel security guardrail in Pillar the Second is securing the entire domestic AI computing stack.
Everything from the energy systems to the telecommunications.
All of it. Securing it against foreign adversary information and communications technology and services, or ICTS.
So the plan is to prevent the use of hardware or software from designated foreign adversaries in any critical infrastructure supporting the AAAP.
That's the idea. The physical and digital backbone of the Genesis mission cannot be compromised by foreign influence or hardware backdoors. This is going to require a complete vetting and potentially replacement of systems across the entire utility and telecom sectors.
The scale of construction we're talking about, factories, data centers, power plants, it demands a specialized workforce that, let's be honest, is already in short supply. How does the plan address that labor challenge?
That's the most practical question, right? Who actually builds all this? So the plan includes a significant labor mandate.
A necessary counterpoint to all the tech focus.
It is. It calls for a national initiative to identify these high-priority infrastructure occupations, the people who will physically build the plan.
We're talking about certified electricians who can handle high-voltage industrial loads.
Electricians, advanced HVAC technicians for cooling these massive data centers, other specialized trade workers. The strategy mandates a rapid expansion of training programs.
Using things like registered apprenticeships.
Exactly. Leveraging established tools like that to scale up the skilled workforce quickly. And crucially, the DOE national laboratories are specifically tasked with expanding this hands-on research training to prepare new workers for these critical AI infrastructure roles.
It really just underscores the sheer mobilization effort required.
Yeah.
And that brings us directly to the execution arm of the whole plan, the Genesis mission and the central role of the Department of Energy.
The Genesis mission is where the strategy shifts from a policy blueprint to a full-scale, historic national effort. It was launched by executive order on November 24, 2025.
And it's explicitly defined in the source material as comparable to the Manhattan Project.
That comparison is completely intentional. It's meant to signal supreme national priority and a willingness to commit massive federal resources, just like the project that was instrumental in winning WWII.
That's a powerful comparison, but, critics might argue the Manhattan Project was very focused. It had a single, clearly defined objective. Isn't trying to double all of science an impossibly broad goal? Won't that just dilute the effort?
That's a highly valid challenge, and the source material addresses that scope by linking the objective directly to the leverage of AI.
Okay.
So the goal, while it's highly ambitious, is to double the productivity and impact of American science and engineering within a decade.
By using AI.
By integrating and leveraging the AI revolution across all federal scientific domains. It's not about incremental improvements. It's about transforming the entire process of scientific discovery itself.
They envision things like AI agents testing new hypotheses, automating research,
Simulating material properties faster than ever before, accelerating breakthroughs in everything from medicine to high-energy physics.
and the physical and digital mechanism for this is the American Science and Security Platform. The platform. How do they plan to integrate all these diverse and, historically siloed federal resources?
The platform is designed to be the world's most complex scientific instrument ever built. It's meant to function as the integrated nervous system for the whole mission.
So it coordinates and fuses resources across the entire federal scientific enterprise.
Exactly. It integrates the collective power of the DOE's 17 national laboratories, linking their vast infrastructure, their supercomputers, including secure cloud systems from industry partners, and the core asset,
The data.
the world's largest collection of federal scientific data sets, which the government has been accumulating for decades.
So they're taking decades of fragmented, often siloed data from climate modeling, physics experiments, material science databases, genomic sequences, digitizing it, standardizing it, and then feeding it into massive new, secure AI foundation models.
Hosted on the DOE supercomputers. That is the essence of the Genesis mission. It's creating a coordinated, centralized national research backbone.
Connecting labs, agencies, universities, industry partners, all in a highly secure environment.
Right. And the AI models, they become the brain that analyzes this historical data trove to find patterns and predict outcomes that might take human researchers years to uncover.
And the mission immediately targets 3 focus areas that directly support the AAAP's pillars.
Yes, and these focus areas show the immediate operational priorities. First is American energy dominance, which links right back to Pillar 2.
Using AI to accelerate research in advanced nuclear commercial fusion.
And grid modernization, especially managing the dynamic loads from data centers. Second is advancing discovery science.
Which involves building the quantum ecosystem and creating those AI agents for automated research.
Correct. And third, ensuring national security. Deploying advanced AI to strengthen deterrence, like verifying the safety of the U.S. nuclear stockpile without underground testing.
And accelerating the development of new defense-ready materials using AI simulation.
Exactly.
You know, the operational deadlines in the executive order really demonstrate that this isn't just a white paper, it's a real implementation schedule with extreme urgency.
The timeline is the clearest signal of commitment. The executive order sets these incredibly aggressive timeframes, mirroring the urgency of the Manhattan Project.
How aggressive?
Within just 90 days of the order, the DOE was mandated to identify and secure computing and cloud resources, including from commercial partners.
Oh, wait, 90 days.
Within 120 days, they had to identify the initial data and model assets to be integrated. And critically, within 270 days, that's less than a year, the DOE has to try and demonstrate an initial operating capability of the platform.
For at least one of the major national science challenges.
Yeah. This proves the intent is genuine, immediate, and focused entirely on deliverables.
Okay, so we've established the massive infrastructure mandate in Pillar 2, and the urgency of the execution arm, the Genesis mission. Let's circle back now to Pillar 6, the accelerator.
The accelerated innovation and deregulation push.
Right. The government's attempt to use policy to just get out of the way of the private sector.
Well, the core strategy of Pillar Bart is strictly non-interventionist when it comes to product development, but it is interventionist in creating the optimal conditions for that development.
So it's about fostering environments for private sector-led innovation to flourish.
That's the phrase. And it includes the ongoing deregulation, removing red tape, rescinding policies like EO 14110. Agencies across the government are directed to conduct these comprehensive reviews to identify and repeal any existing regulations that hinder AI deployment.
But the government isn't totally hands-off. It's still investing heavily in its own R&D infrastructure, leveraging the DOE national labs to create shared resources.
Oh, absolutely. The government is creating the sandbox for rapid private innovation. The plan mandates significant investment in next-generation research tools.
Tools that accelerate the scientific method itself.
Right. This includes automated cloud-enabled labs for resource-intensive fields like materials science, chemistry, and biology.
So think of these as AI-driven robotic labs.
That's a great way to put it. Labs where hypotheses can be tested and materials synthesized 24/7 without human intervention. It's essentially industrializing the scientific process.
And they're also investing in AI testbeds.
Heavily. For piloting AI systems in secure, real-world settings. Across critical domains like agriculture, healthcare, transportation, the goal is to create these safe environments where AI tools can be tested, rapidly iterated, and then translated to the market much faster.
There's a really crucial distinction in the plan about the types of models it supports. It explicitly backs open models over closed ones. What's the strategic thinking behind supporting open source and open weight AI models?
The plan views open models as essential for maintaining competitive velocity and for preventing vendor lock-in.
How so?
Well, open models let startups innovate. They can flexibly modify and tune them for niche applications without paying huge fees or relying on a single closed vendor.
And they're also better for sensitive government or commercial use cases.
Right, where data security and privacy mean you can't just send your information to a proprietary third-party vendor for processing. And finally, they're just essential for academic research, which needs access to weights and training data for scientific rigor.
And to make sure that whole open ecosystem can get the hardware it needs, the government is also tackling compute access.
That's right. Compute power is the ultimate resource bottleneck. So to support the broader ecosystem, the startups, the academics using these open models, they're accelerating the maturation of a financial market for compute.
What does that mean, a financial market for compute?
It means working with hyperscalers and cloud providers to improve access, maybe by facilitating short-term, high-volume compute contracts instead of the massive long-term commitments that only big companies can afford.
So it's about democratizing access to the raw processing power.
That's the goal.
Okay, finally, let's revisit that crucial ideological mandate about objective truth, because that leads to a very specific, fundamental policy action within Pillar I that dictates how federal AI is governed.
Right. That mandate is easily the most politically charged element of the plan. It's a clear reflection of the administration's belief that many current AI systems, or those developed under the previous regulatory regime, are inherently biased.
Or prone to specific ideological interpretations.
Exactly. So the policy states that federal AI must be explicitly free from ideological bias and designed to pursue objective truth rather than what they define as social engineering agendas.
And that's not just rhetoric. You said it has teeth.
It does. There's a direct policy action to enforce it.
And what's that specific action?
It's a highly technical but very impactful directive. A mandate to revise the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, the RMF.
And the NIST RMF is the gold standard for how federal agencies assess AI risks.
It is. And the mandate is to eliminate references to 3 specific topics from that framework: misinformation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, and climate change.
By removing those risk categories, the government is fundamentally changing the compliance checklist.
Completely. So now, when a federal agency or a contractor evaluates an AI system under the revised NIST framework, they are no longer required to demonstrate how the model mitigates climate change risks or addresses DEI impacts or screens against what was previously called misinformation.
So for the industry, this is seen as removing costly, time-consuming compliance requirements that the administration viewed as subjective.
Correct. It redirects the focus of risk management purely toward technical safety, security, and performance metrics. It aligns perfectly with the goal of accelerated innovation and speed.
This has been a tremendously detailed look at America's AI action plan. The political structure, the scientific mandate, the regulatory reversals. We've defined the risk, which is the execution challenge, and the reward, global dominance.
So now let's synthesize this into the final verdict. The investment thesis capitalizing on what you're calling the Genesis industrial complex.
Okay, the investment thesis is, I think, structurally sound, but it's entirely predicated on the government executing Pillar to this.
The mandate for deregulation and a massive energy buildout. If that construction materializes, it guarantees sustained long-term demand across the entire technological and industrial supply chain that supports the Genesis mission. We really can't overstate this. The foundational premise is that sovereign compute is impossible without sovereign power.
And the goal of doubling R&D productivity within a decade ensures that the consumption cycle for all these materials and services will last for years.
Creating the Genesis industrial complex.
Okay, let's assess the 5 essential layers of this complex. We can detail exactly how the AAP and Genesis mission create the demand for each. Let's start with the high beta foundation.
Layer 1 is semiconductors and technology suppliers. I call it the engine high beta foundation. This is the immediate CapEx phase.
Right.
The Genesis mission requires massive spending on advanced computing capacity for training those foundational scientific models, for running simulations at the DOE labs, and then for inference at scale.
And the AAAP explicitly targets restoring domestic semiconductor manufacturing.
For supply chain security, yes.
So beyond the obvious beneficiaries like NVIDIA and AMD, what other parts of that ecosystem benefit from the push for domestic manufacturing?
You have to look at the entire fabrication ecosystem. I mean, companies like Applied Materials are essential. They provide the sophisticated manufacturing tools and equipment that go inside the fabs.
And firms like Synopsys.
Critical. They provide the electronic design automation software, the EDA software you need to design these complex chips. A push for domestic fabs means a sustained multi-year CapEx cycle for everyone involved in tools and design.
Okay, let's move to the second layer, the one you identified as the next crucial bottleneck after the chips are made.
Layer 2. Industrial, aerospace, and energy infrastructure. This is the breakout. This sector is set to benefit massively as the next bottleneck.
Because the entire thesis of Pillar 2, vastly greater energy generation, grid modernization, advanced nuclear, drives this layer.
This is where the physical execution meets the policy mandate. That build, baby, build ethos, the streamlined permitting, it translates directly into faster project commencement for these firms.
Can you give us some specific examples of companies that would benefit from this focus on grid modernization and advanced power?
Sure. You're talking about companies that stabilize and manage complex power loads. So GE Vernova for high-end grid modernization equipment and turbines.
Okay.
Industrial conglomerates like RTX and GE Aerospace. They supply high-reliability components and research tools for the advanced nuclear and fusion research at the DOE labs. And crucially, companies like Eaton and Siemens are core beneficiaries.
Why them specifically?
Because they specialize in power distribution gear, the specialized transformers and critical switchgear you need to link large, new, dispatchable power sources directly to the high-voltage requirements of a hyperscale data center.
Okay, layer 3. This deals with the digital environment where the Genesis mission actually operates, and it relies on the private sector to house and secure federal data.
Right. Layer 3 is large tech and cloud infrastructure, the platform enablers. The American Science and Security Platform is integrating the world's largest collection of federal scientific data that demands secure, scalable, high-performance computing.
And the DOE is specifically directed to identify resources through industry partners.
Which suggests large existing government cloud contracts are going to be leveraged immediately.
So the established hyperscalers, the ones with existing government-grade security certifications, they're going to dominate this layer.
Precisely. That includes AWS, Microsoft, specifically their Azure Government Cloud, and companies with long-standing DOE relationships like IBM and Oracle.
And the hardware suppliers.
Hardware suppliers like Dell Technologies and Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, HPE, are also mission-critical. They supply the secure server infrastructure and the HPC environments needed to run the platform's models.
Okay, layer 4 focuses on the raw materials needed for all this, the stuff you identified as potentially undervalued.
Layer 4 is materials, mining, and critical minerals. The value play. The AAAP mandates investment in AI-enabled material science to secure domestic supply chains.
For energy storage, high-performance magnets, specialized electronics.
Exactly. And the market analysis suggests the sector could be undervalued compared to the high-flying chip makers because it's a slower, more structural play.
So if the Genesis mission succeeds in accelerating new material discovery, like a better battery cathode, and the government mandates domestic sourcing,
this layer could be set for a structural re-rating.
what are the specific materials we should be watching beyond just lithium and rare earths?
Well, the focus is heavily on the inputs for the energy revolution and advanced computing. So lithium from a company like Albemarle and rare earth elements from MP Materials are foundational for batteries and magnets.
And specialized lasers used in fusion experiments.
Right. But also metals like nickel, cobalt, and graphite are critical for energy storage, and specialized inputs for advanced microelectronics are needed for the domestic chip push. It's all aimed at mitigating supply chain vulnerabilities, primarily those linked to China.
And finally, layer 5, the connectivity. The part that links all these disparate assets, the 17 national labs, the data centers, the industry partners, into one cohesive platform.
Layer 5 is communications and network infrastructure. Building the platform requires integrating all these geographically dispersed labs into a coordinated, high-speed national research backbone.
So you need massive, secure, high-bandwidth connectivity.
And advanced security systems that can handle petabytes of scientific data transfer. Companies like Cisco and Nokia, which supply high-end optical and network equipment, along with defense contractors that provide classified network security, are essential to ensuring that data can flow quickly and securely.
Now that we've established this enormous potential, let's address the primary structural risks. A national effort of this magnitude, a new Manhattan project, it has to navigate immense geopolitical and domestic hurdles. Any one of them could derail the entire plan.
That's the critical stress test for the entire investment thesis. The success of this long-term strategy depends on navigating some very significant, very entrenched impediments. The first major one is geopolitical risk.
Specifically, China containment. That's the core mandate of Pillar 3.
Right. If the U.S. doesn't maintain a significant technological gap, the whole dominance goal is impossible.
What specific technical actions are mandated to mitigate the risks of China acquiring this technology?
Success hinges on strengthening export controls and, eliminating loopholes. The plan calls for reinforcing enforcement on advanced AI compute, maybe even novel measures like location verification features on high-end chips.
But the more critical part is the new controls.
Yes. The plan mandates establishing new controls on semiconductor manufacturing subsystems. Previous controls focused on the big equipment, like UV machines or the finished chips.
This new focus aims to plug the loopholes.
By restricting the smaller, specialized components, the materials, the measurement tools you need for advanced semiconductor manufacturing. The goal is to deny foreign adversaries access to the key technologies required to build their own advanced AI ecosystems from scratch. They have to execute Pillar the Third flawlessly.
Or adversaries will just circumvent the controls by building their own capacity internally.
Exactly.
Okay, the second major risk is tied directly to the exponential nature of scientific discovery that the Genesis mission could enable, particularly in fields like synthetic biology.
That is the crucial biosecurity CBRNE risk: chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats. AI could dramatically accelerate life science research, but that creates new pathways for malicious actors.
I could synthesize harmful pathogens or design new chemical weapons using AI to model the synthesis pathways.
It's a catastrophic risk, and to mitigate it, the AAAP includes a very strong mandate. All institutions receiving federal research funding must use nucleic acid synthesis tools and providers that have robust sequence screening and customer verification procedures.
So the government is mandating a technical standard for biosecurity screening as a prerequisite for federal funding.
Absolutely. It's a clear regulatory response to the dual-use nature of advanced AI science. It's an attempt to place technical guardrails at the raw material stage of biological research.
And finally, the domestic risk we touched on earlier, the constraint that ties back to the workforce.
The final structural risk is the inherent challenge of execution: workforce deficits. The sources explicitly mention the risk that shortages in these high-priority infrastructure occupations.
The electricians, the HVAC technicians, the power systems engineers.
That shortages of those workers will impede the execution of this Manhattan Project equivalent build-out. The government can streamline permitting all it wants, but if there aren't enough skilled workers to physically build the hundreds of data centers and power plants required, the Genesis mission just slows down dramatically.
So the DOE's role in expanding training programs is mission critical, not just supplementary.
It is the single largest potential domestic constraint on realizing the AAAP's ambitions.
This deep dive into America's AI Action Plan has really laid out an ambitious, cohesive, and frankly, risky strategic path. The strategic goal is clear: unquestioned dominance. The mechanism is the Genesis mission, driven by the DOE, and the investment rationale flows directly from the required infrastructure build-out and the deregulation mandated under Pillar to Act.
You know, what stands out to me as we wrap this up is just the sheer scale and the immediate operational pace demanded by the sources. The Genesis mission's deadlines: 90 days to identify cloud resources, 270 days for an initial operating capability. That demonstrates this plan is about concrete, near-term implementation, not future rhetoric.
Right.
So the profound question for the long term, for you, the listener, and for the markets is this: can a national mobilization effort, enforced through centralized government mandates, deregulation, and comparisons to WWII-era urgency, can it truly override these entrenched, complex constraints like stagnating energy capacity, deep-seated geopolitical rivalry, and skilled labor shortages, all in a compressed, decade-long timeline?
Thank you for joining us for this extensive deep dive into the source material on the AAAP.
Risk defined, portfolio protected.